Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young, and we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it.
What's up, honey? We're back.
Hey, hold on. Hold on. What you doing? You turning my mic down? You in here trying to silence me?
No, honey.
I'm back, people. Loud and proud.
I was in here recording a podcast with somebody else, and I had
She in here trying
turn
to
the mic down because I don't use your mic, honey. That's all you.
She out here trying to silence me.
I mean, sometimes, we need to silence people a little bit. But
hey, think about what you say. It's a relationship podcast.
I'm just saying.
So I'm saying, people, think about that. Think about what you say before you say it.
You know what? You're right. But you have told me, hush up. You know what you say? I know what you say. I'm going to tell on you right now. You say, now this is so not nice. Shut your face. That's what you say. That's what you say. I have heard these words come out of your mouth.
Well, that has not been in recent years.
Oh, did you just say recent? You know what? I wish I had some tape, some recording. I wish I had video. I need the audio.
I wish we weren't recording this right now.
This has occurred for sure in 2023. Now, I will say it is in jest. It is with humor. It is,
Right.
But
I'm about to pull it out in a second.
Oh, here we go. Well,
welcome back to the For Better and Worth podcast, people.
Yes, we are here, and
I think this is an appropriate topic today.
Is it? Tell me why. What makes it?
Because this podcast is for everybody. It's for the young at heart. It's for those that really are young. It's for those that are middle-aged, transitioning, older folks. It's for everybody. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about relationships and money, if you want to be in a relationship and it involves and includes money, it's for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about we thought it was going to be one of our favorite shows, but didn't turn out that way. I can't wait.
I don't know if you would even call it a favorite show. It's because I think people are starting to understand when we actually watch television where we spend our time.
That's right.
Because we talked about Married at First Sight.
Yes.
We've talked about some other.
Love is Blind.
Yes, we've mentioned that. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked about my favorite, The Walking Dead, which that has nothing
in
that same vein
to do with anything substantial. Good Lord, I can't stand that show. But anyway.
But today we've been watching the Golden Bachelor.
Oh my gosh. You know what? And we're not Bachelor Nation people. That is not our thing.
Not at all. It was hilarious to me, the whole thing.
It was. We just thought, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so funny. And the Golden Bachelor was from Indiana. So of course I'm like, well, let's see,
let's check
with this dude
out.
From the cornfields come out here and get on Bachelor Nation. Let's see what he got.
Yeah, I thought the whole thing was funny because I think the youngest person on there was what, 60 something?
Yeah, I think so.
And the oldest person was 84. But I think she was only on there for like
she was on there for laughs and ha-has,
Yeah, she wasn't really a viable candidate.
No, but what's so interesting is this Golden Bachelor, Jerry, not Gary, or Gary, not Gary. It's Gary.
Yeah, Gary.
Gary, he was a widower. Is it widower or widow? He's a widower.
He was a widower.
Yes, and very much so in love with his wife, and still,
They've been married for like 40-some years.
A long time, a very long time, and you could tell that he still was dealing with some grief, but he was throughout like a really nice guy. Like I liked him. I thought he wasn't showy. He was just personable. He was just like that Midwestern dude. And I was like, oh, I really want to see him win and find the love of his second half of life, or, whatever, however you want to call it. And so I was rooting for him.
Yeah,
And
he seemed like a good dude, and I was just laughing because I was like, look at somebody, granddaddy.
yeah.
He out here about to get mono, kissing all these
You know
women.
what? You better stop. Now, he did kiss a lot of them women. I ain't going to trip. But
Look at Grandpa Gary. He's like, sucking face with all 20 women.
he was trying hard to find his woman, okay?
Right. I was like, I ain't mad at you, Gary. Go on, play a player.
And let's talk about how thirsty the women were. Christopher,
Oh my God.
they were so thirsty, nose wide open. Ain't that what your mama would say?
Look, whoever's listening to this podcast right now is probably laughing. And if you go watch The Golden Bachelor, it's funny.
It is some great entertainment. I mean, it worked. Honestly, this one worked for me because it had lots of highs and lows because it was emotional. He had a really hard time letting people go when they didn't get a rose. And then, but it was some highs and some laughter. These women just were hilarious. Okay.
I felt like they were trying to set thirst traps for him. So
They were.
it was funny to me, but I was laughing, and we're even talking about it because I just think it's so applicable to what we talk about on the podcast, because it is never too late.
You got that right.
And I think Gary is he's like 72 or something. And if you're a widower and you've been married for a long time and you feel like you've lost your life partner, it's never too late to have someone else. And we didn't even think about it. Our next door neighbor.
That's right.
Same situation.
Come on. Our next door neighbor is the Golden Bachelor of our neighborhood.
Right. It's the same situation. Dude is like in shape. He's a good dude. I call him, my father's son because he's old enough to be my father, and clearly I'm young enough to be his son, but I act as though I'm his father.
Right. You tell him what he can't do because he's always looking for your help, and you telling him to put stuff down. Don't be doing that, or go buy yourself a new couch. This thing is too old.
I'm over there telling him like I'm his father what to do, and he's like, okay, son. And I'm like, look, don't have me come back over here. Don't let me see your girlfriend's car out here.
Listen, because his nose wide open. Ain't that what you said? That's what you said. When he told us about his friend, we were like, oh, he is smitten for real.
Look, I love it that we're seeing people who are at phases later on in life. They've completed their working careers. They've got grown kids. And I just thought it was great how even on the Grown Bachelor, and even with our neighbors.
You said the Grown Bachelor, baby.
Oh, well.
They are grown.
Yeah, well, I guess you can call it the Grown Bachelor, the Golden Bachelor. It all works and fits.
It does. It does.
But I just love seeing that they are still having these relationships and things. And instead of meeting your kids, like, you got to go meet their grandkids. And
or meeting their parents.
Kids.
You're not meeting their parents.
Right. You're meeting their kids.
And their siblings and their, Yeah,
it's I don't know. It's just funny. But let's go ahead and get into talking about more of this. So
I think the thing that was intriguing to me about some of these marriage reality TV shows is that they do talk about money. So in some of the other shows that we have watched, they have intentionally had conversations around how to handle the money and how much people make and all of that kind of stuff so that they can get clarity on what needs to happen next and if it's the right fit on some of those shows too. And they didn't discuss it at all on this one. And so I found it interesting because this is the chapter in life where you're not working. And so maybe salary is not the conversation, but there's assets potentially involved that could be something to discuss. And so I just thought, wow, okay, they never actually shared it on TV. Now, granted, my hope and prayer is that they have shared it behind the scenes, but I noticed it distinctly just because that's what I'm up to.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because you started talking about like legacy at this point and, what you want to leave behind. And I feel like they still got a lot of life left in them. But you start thinking broader about, how you're going to maybe provide college for your grandkids or whatever legacy it is that you're trying to leave, or generational wealth, as we call it, what we're trying to make sure we do.
And the type of life that you get to live right now, right? So there's one assumption that I have to make is that these people were living by themselves so they could take care of themselves. And then they get a chance to combine resources and potentially level up, if you will. Not even talking about assets, but just being able to increase their lifestyle and do more together than they potentially could.
Because they were
on their
all
own.
they were almost all of Social Security age.
Yeah.
And they had retirement. Some of the early younger ones that were in their 60s, clearly they may not be taking full Social Security disbursements yet, but some of them were still working and doing things. But
looking to leave work at some point soon, and those are considerations. Those are conversations I think is important to have.
yeah, I also think that they need to be talking about a prenup.
Honey, listen, when you told me that, I was like, yeah, that part right there. Now, I'm sure that would get heated on TV as well, but Lord have mercy.
Behind closed doors, Gary better be like, look, I spent my whole life working. My wife done passed away.
And I got these kids with her, my children with her.
Right. And you don't know if he had like insurance or, what he's amassed from his working career via retirement, or what he has, from an asset perspective.
Yeah.
But I think it would be remiss on his part if he didn't talk about a prenup. And the woman he ended up with, she was a
widow as well.
She was a widow, and she was a working, securities professional. And so I think they both need to have a prenup because they both had children. And even thinking about our neighbor, he has adult children.
And grandkids.
He has grandkids that are,
young adults.
Yeah, they're getting into their 20s and things like that. So he has a lot to think about, as does his girlfriend. She has the same thing. And so if you don't consider a prenup when you're at later phases in relationship, I think it'd be a miss, because I know in our trust,
listen,
look, your boy put that clause in there. Something happened to me.
Wait a minute.
Look, she getting them prenup. Get that prenup signed.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So you think, wait a minute. Okay, this is reciprocal, sir. Because I thought about it. This actually got me heated in a few different ways. One is, I'm like, I want you to be happy if something should happen to me. But I don't want her, whoever that somebody is making you happy, to have a lick of my money. Okay. So I was completely on board with putting prenups in. Like, hold on. Should something happen, like, this money is for my kids and my grandkids that you and I had together. And after that,
it's easy for me. It would be easy because I'd be like, my deceased wife, this was her wish that, I have a prenup.
You're going to put it all on me. You're going
to provide for, my children and grandchildren.
You're not going to say this decision was birthed out of love for this
Absolutely.
wife.
Absolutely.
I see where you're going with this. You better watch your back.
But look, it's easy, because I want to make sure that my children and grandchildren and even great-grandchildren, if possible, have a piece of legacy that we can move forward and leave for them to create, generational wealth.
Well, and here's the thing. That's the positive side, right? Sometimes prenups are for protection, because what if you are in love with somebody who's not great with money, or doesn't have, or who has debt, or who has a complicated current situation with their family and kids and stuff? A prenup protects you and your assets and your family from that as well. And so I think that it's just wisdom. I'll be very honest with you. I think it is simply wisdom for, those who have assets, who have a family, and who are looking to have a new relationship with someone after the spouse has passed on. And so that, I think, is just simply wisdom. I will tell you, 20 years ago, I might not have thought that way. 20 years ago. But I've seen so much. And I think, and then now thinking about my own situation and what if something happened to either one of us, I'm selfish. I didn't realize I was selfish, Chris.
I don't know if it's selfish. because I think this is why retirement planning becomes so important. And this is why you have to think through scenarios. And that's the problem, is that people don't want to think about the downside risk. All people think about is upside. And, you have to think about downside and upside, risk and how things can change over time. And so we all think about, okay, I got to invest into my 401k. I've got to have, a liquid emergency fund and all those things that we're trying to do today, as we encourage people to get out of debt, to be committed to creating an emergency fund and saving long term. But at different phases, you have to make adjustments to your strategy. And as part of that investment planning, you have to start doing estate planning. You have to start thinking longer term and how, if something happens, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
If something changes, what's going to be your response and how you move forward? Because it's about, like you said, it's about how you're going to live today on income. Are you going to continue to work? Are you going to draw from investments? Or in this case with older individuals, at what point are you going to draw Social Security? Because everybody wants to, God willing, you live long enough, you want to draw at the latest date to get the most,
if you can,
the most money from Social Security. But, if your situation necessitates that you go earlier, you may get less, but you know what you can anticipate from a living perspective. And then you combine that with what you can pull from investments. This is why investment planning is so very important.
You really could have did that as a career, because I think your passion for people taking care of this in their life is, you talk to coworkers about it. Clearly, we talk about this on the podcast. You talk to friends about it. Like you get passionate in a way that like lay people, I was gonna say normal, but lay people, just folks who are not in that business, they don't get that excited about it.
That would have been good, because I could be getting paid for all this free advice I'm giving away.
You're right.
Folks.
You are absolutely right. I think that there, sometimes is this assumption about money when you get to a certain age, like you were talking about, Social Security and things like that, like that it might not be as much of an issue for people at a later age. And I actually think there's more complications to consider. And people don't want to talk about the potential demise of a relationship, or when people pass away, or they don't want to talk about difficult things. And so I think that is, and these are assumptions we make that everything's going to be okay. And so then we avoid conversations. And, we have, experienced quite a bit. And we know life will continue to go on even when things happen. Job loss of, family members, medical challenges, things like that occur in life. And we don't really want to talk about those what ifs or those downsides or those moments. But wisdom says,
wisdom says they're going to happen.
They're going to happen. They're going to happen. Yeah. And so we can't be unprepared. And so I think that's the other thing too. So, I'm curious what, if a person is of retirement age and they are dating, what do you think could happen if they don't actually talk about money at a deep level, even with some of the things that you talked about right now in the last few minutes?
I think they could. I think if they're not talking about it proactively, then you end up talking about it reactively, because something happens and you have to respond to it. And we know that if you're not an effective planner and you're just reactionary, you can make poor decisions. And I think about this just keeps coming back to my mind as we're having this conversation. I get up and go to the gym every morning, and I was going to the gym one morning, and I parked my car, and I was getting out, and I was parked next to this car, and clearly this was a product they were selling, and they had one of these door stickers, and it talked about how reverse mortgages is not a bad thing.
Woo! Don't
And
get me started
I
on the
was like,
reverse
look,
mortgages.
the emotion that came from me, I mean, it's like, 6 o'clock in the morning. I was like, reverse mortgages are predatory. This is not good for older people. And I'm saying this as I'm walking in the gym, like, why are you advertising this? This is not what older people should be doing. It reached the point where their house is paid off. Now you talk. And I was like having this conversation with myself going into the gym.
Yeah.
And I think that if you don't talk about it, you can start making some poor decisions.
Right. Exactly.
And I personally think that reverse mortgages are poor decisions.
Right. And it's and like you just said, it's predatory against the older population who, they might need some cash and that might be valid, but in terms of, using your asset for that, and oh my gosh, that is
because that asset
so problematic.
That asset becomes not an asset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think like to answer the question, I think it's important because if you don't plan, you can make poor decisions in the long term. And it can just change how. I don't think it's ever too late for people to find love, find connection, find commitment. And I just love it when I see, like, even on the Golden Bachelor and our neighbor, I see how happy he is. And he was, now don't get me wrong, he was deeply in love with his wife before she passed away. They had been married for a long time. They had a great life together. And he spent a couple years before he was open back up to explore something. But I see how happy he is now. And that's why I say his nose is wide open, because he's just like, oh, my God, Roxanne.
Oh, no, you didn't put her name out there.
Well, it's a lot of Roxannes out there in the world.
Roxanne.
Right. He was like,
I want to be your man.
But I just thought I just love seeing it in him. And I know that he has effectively planned. And I know she has planned, because as his father, I had to intervene, and I have these tough conversations with them, just all up in their business.
With your daddy, not daddy.
Right. Like, father, not father. But, I'm over there acting like his father. So what's your intentions with my son?
That's hilarious. We did have kind of a moment like that, but I think you're right. It could lead to you being unprepared for a lot that could happen. And I think the other thing is, if you prepare and you plan, then your wishes, you know what you want. Right. You know what you want for who you love. And I call it a love note. I think that what you're saying to your family or your friends or those that you care about is, I care enough to put this first, to make this important, to make this a bigger deal. And so I'm sharing a love note with you, whether I'm here or not. This is me giving this gift to you. And it may not be monetary, but so it could be an asset. It could be whatever, but you're sharing, this, I love you enough to think of you prior to anything happening that neither one of us want to have. And I think that's important.
And I don't want people to mistake what we're saying either. I don't want people to mistake this either. I think that people are looking for companionship, and they should include their new person as part of their, trust or part of their plan. But it's about finding that person that you can have companionship with. And so I think it's kind of both of those things. But when you think about, like, it being too late, or, what people can do, I mean, what are some other things that come to mind for you?
I think people think it's too late. And as a financial coach, I have, my job is to inject hope. My job is to help people see new possibilities or to rethink what they thought was impossible. And I've worked with people in their 60s. Some of them have moved into a lesser expensive home so that the mortgage itself is paid for, and they feel good about that move and they make it their own. I have had people who have worked a second job in their 60s in order to pay off debt, and to feel like they can live on the income that they have. You make these choices in order to get a different result. And if you don't look at your finances, if you don't talk about it with your partner, then you won't do anything different to see a different result. And so I think it's important to plan. It's important. I think the biggest thing, number one thing for anyone who is looking to retire is don't have any debt. And I'm including the mortgage. Like, have no debt at the very minimum. And the best place to be is to have no mortgage at the time where you're trying to retire. So that is ideal. And so if we can figure out a plan to make sure that people get there, that's the minimum you need to do. Not even talking about retirement assets and that kind of thing. That will put you in the best position to be able to have less stress about your money.
And that could mean a few things with people who are, 65 and older, let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
That can mean that they've worked, they've paid their home off so they don't have a mortgage. Or in some cases, like you've seen with some clients, they have sold their home, they've downsized to a smaller home that maybe they paid cash for. Or they moved someplace and they've decided that they're just going to cash out and they're going to pay rent, because I know like we had family members that wanted to be in community.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided to sell their homes and were living in
a retirement community.
Yeah, a community where they paid monthly to live there, but because they had saved over the years, they had a home that was an asset, they were able to fund the lifestyle that they wanted to live.
Yeah.
And they were extremely happy in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it could mean a number of things. Like that opens up those opportunities when you don't go into relationships, especially when you're, senior age and above.
Yeah.
Where you have those options.
Right.
So let's talk about make it worth it. So thinking about this area of life that we're talking about, because here at the For Better and Worth podcast,
here you go, putting on your podcast voice.
We're all about relationships and money, but there is no age that we don't touch.
That's right. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing in order to make it worth it is just to plan. I mean, if we could just the 4-letter word of the day is to plan, because if you don't plan, then you are not interested in making a real difference in your future and those that come after you. And so I think just prepare and plan, and it is worth it to do so, even if those conversations are uncomfortable. And that's why sometimes it's great to get a professional, And so I really think that if we have the time and the space and the know-how to make a plan ahead of time, that's important. The other thing I think that we failed to touch on is that our Golden Bachelor is getting married really fast.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, they getting married in January, and so they know that time is of the essence, and they're wasting no time. And so I think in terms of planning, let's waste no time. Let's take a hint from our friend Gary.
Look, Gary is about that life.
Yeah, he made it known what he was about to do. Okay, he made it known.
Gary was like, good loving body rock and knock your boots all night long.
Listen, he said they think old people don't knock boots. I said, wait a minute, Gary, not your little small town dude.
Like, Gary out here wild. Gary was for the streets for about.
He sure was.
About how many weeks did it?
Couple months. He was for the streets.
I was like, Gary's for the streets.
So husband, how would you say to make it worth it?
Well, we're talking about 4-letter words, so I'm gonna use one also.
A positive one, I hope.
Absolutely. This is a positive podcast.
Is it a clean podcast?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So what's your 4-letter word?
Be open.
Open. There we go.
See, you think the best. Be open. That's for the people. That's for you too.
Hey,
But I'm saying be open because you never know what life is going to bring you. And we can have highs in life, we can have lows in life, but be open to what life is presenting to you. And in this case, as older individuals, I say be open to explore, be open to share your life with others. And there's so much knowledge that they can bring to the table. And when you have an older couple like this and the Golden Bachelor, or even our neighbor, it's just, I love seeing it because it's encouraging to people as well. Because people can think like, I'm going to be alone, I'm going to be this. And no, that doesn't have to be your story. You can be the author of your story if you are open to what is coming your way and don't be closed off. And so that's what I would say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Make a plan and be open. So this has been great, honey. I'm so glad that we chose the Golden Bachelor. I was, intrigued by that show. Not that I'm going to continue to be a part of Bachelor Nation, as they call it. But it's given us some food for thought. And I wish Gary and, is it Teresa? I wish them well.
Yeah, I think it was timely to help us have a conversation about a segment of the population that I don't think they're forgotten, but they can be kind of pushed aside sometimes. And so it was good to see them have their moment and have their opportunity to, show what they showed in front of America.
Yeah. So until next time, honey.
We're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on ForBetterAndWorth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.